In fact, I'm going to read them to you in order, decreasing in size. Alaska, Delaware, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Vermont, and Wyoming. Each of those has 2 senators and 1 congressman. And what's that mean? That means that there's a big shift in power to some very small states. And we've seen just how screwy this gets when we've had just 2 senators, Manchin and Sinema, taking us for a wild ride and having more power than the president. And that just doesn't work. And by the way, I'm glad you're here, and drop in and say something in the chat. And if you got questions, ask away. We'd love to have you on board. So again, so we have those 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 states with only 1 person in the House. Now, let's point out something else that's patently unfair. How many citizens are there in all those states compared to how many citizens of the United States don't get a senator, don't get a congressman at all? We could basically wrap those, almost all those together, well, not quite, and end up with the same of Puerto Rico. It is larger than 21 states with a population of 3.4 million, 3.3 million, equal to Delaware, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Alaska together. And they don't have a congressman, and they don't have 2 senators. But they're U.S. citizens. Now, they don't have to pay federal income tax, but I don't think that's anything different than a bunch of billionaires in this country. So, you know, we should give them a hall pass on that. And they do get to vote in the presidential primary, along with D.C., Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, North Mariana Islands, and American Samoa, who all together have a population of 378,000 and change, versus Wyoming, which is at 579. So why don't those people get a choice either? And by the way, they don't get to vote for president, as don't the people of Puerto Rico. And then there's D.C., which has 681,000, which is more than Vermont. They get to vote for primaries, they get to vote for president, but they don't have a congressman, and they don't have a senator, or 2 senators. So what are we going to do about this? There's some Republicans that are talking about going backwards and going back to states picking senators, as if this is going to fix anything. That's how we used to do it before about 1913. We used to have the Senates do that. And it's a really interesting story here because it wasn't working. And publisher William Randolph Hearst, very rich, very wealthy, he was a proponent of direct election. So what did he do? He hired the novelist David Graham Phillips to write a number of articles on the subject, and he published them in Cosmopolitan magazine, of all magazines, back in 1906. Now listen to the title that Phillips used for his series. It was called The Treason of the Senate. That's a pretty strong word. And the whole thing offered what I'm reading here, an unsympathetic and largely fictionalized account of senators as pawns of industrialists and financiers. And this article series, further galvanized public support for reform. Now, let me ask you, pawns of industrialists and financiers, how's that different from Mike Turner getting donations from 19 billionaires from out of state? We've sold out the entire Congress to the highest bidder. So there is no doubt at all that what they were dealing with then is what we're dealing with now. And elections cost way too much. They're run more like auctions. So, Hearst pushed the whole thing, and it changed. And we now directly elect our senators. In Ohio, those senators are currently Sherrod Brown, who's been there for quite some time, and who supported me with money through his political action committee, and Rob Portman, who of course would not support me, and who is vacating his seat after this last term because I think he wants to get out of the rat race that's been going on. And so we are facing, we have Tim Ryan running as a Democrat, as pretty much an independent Democrat. He's not all on board with everything on the Democratic Party. In fact, he sides with Trump on some of the trade things because he doesn't feel that we are giving Ohio companies and Ohio solar panel makers a chance to compete with China. And he's running against J.D. Vance, the hillbilly elegy author who is endorsed, of course, by Donald Trump and a whole bunch of billionaires. And that's why you see so many J.D. Vance commercials on TV. J.D. Vance is not your friend. No matter what you think, no matter what you do, J.D. Vance is a bad choice for Ohio. So, what can or what do we need to do? Well, there's a couple options. And again, the 17th was proposed in Congress, and it was ratified by the states, and it happened pretty quick. The Equal Rights Amendment, I don't know how many times it's been passed, and it doesn't get ratified. So there are some things that maybe if we had more Democrats in Congress, we could get some of these things moving again and working. And maybe if we didn't let ourselves sell out our state legislators to the rich and famous, or should I say rich and devious, we'd be all right. So, first option, obviously, we could make states out of both D.C. and Guam right off the bat, taking us up to 52. Then we could probably create one more state for the islands, the Virgin Islands, the Mariana Islands, American Samoa, and do that. That would probably tick a few people off because it's not even as big as Wyoming. But they're they're unrepresented, and yet they're Americans. You know, and if you ever look at DC license plates, it says taxation without representation right there on the plates. That's what the people think. You have the 700,000 people who are bigger than Wyoming and Vermont and had no representation, about the same size as Alaska, give or take. So, we can make more states, that's an option. Or we could simply do it this way to keep things sort of representational and proportional. We could say if you don't get 2 representatives, you only get 1 senator. How's that for a solution? I think that is a little more proportional. It still gives you an awful lot of power. But when you think about California and the population of California or Texas, and they only have 2 senators, we're really not quite doing democracy here. So I personally think the DC needs to be immediate. I mean, those excuse me, those people, no representation at all. In the House and the Senate, they need their say. They need a voice. Either force them to merge with Maryland, or if they're going to continue to be what they are, give them their representation. As to Puerto Rico, that's a state. If Hawaii is a state, Puerto Rico is a state. Come on, stop playing games. Same thing for Alaska. So we could do that. That starts to make things more proportional. I don't know if it makes it more democratic. I don't know how the people of D.C., although I imagine they would vote Democrat. I don't know how Puerto Rico would go, but it would be the right thing to do. But honestly, why don't we just tell South Dakota and North Dakota to bury their differences and become Dakota? Why don't we tell Montana to join in with them? That would start making sense. How many state houses do we need to pay taxes for? Talk about unigov, let's take it to the state level. Sorry guys, you're just not going to get to do this. Or there's also the flip side. If California decides to split into 3 states and still bigger than most of them, and that way they get 6 congressmen, 6 senators, and boom, things change real quick. Either way, our democracy, based on a document that was written almost 250 years ago, and saying that it's, we have to go back to originalism and think that those founding fathers had everything figured out, is a bunch of hooey. It got us a good long way, but it's ready for a rewrite. The language has changed. Our country has changed. Immigration has changed. There's a whole bunch of modern things that we're not really in tune with. In fact, most of the countries we've beaten in wars have taken the best and the worst out of our system and other systems and put them together and come up with things that seem to be working a whole lot better. And I only say that because all of them have national health care, and most of them have free higher education. And so there's a lot of things that somehow we're missing, but we're spending an awful lot of money on elections. $15 billion for an election is criminal. So, I don't see any questions. I don't see any comments. And I do hear a racket outside. And I don't have to go on and on and on, but I do have a couple things to tell you. I went to the Greene County Democratic Party picnic on Saturday. It was absolutely delightful. They had food. They had people that were warm and welcoming. And then they had their leadership that chose to not let me speak. I'm not quite sure where they think that I'm not a Democrat or the people the voters chose, because I was in a 4-way primary and I came in first. And in fact, I got more votes in Greene County than almost if you take 75% of the votes of all their precinct captains, which are a third of their precincts, I got as many votes as all of them, and all of them ran unopposed. So, I don't know what you have to do to become a Democrat anymore. I don't know if there's some sort of loyalty oath we're supposed to take, or that I didn't participate in the Democratic Party youth corps or something, but for some reason, I'm not allowed to speak. I find that odd. On other news, Shepard Fairey, the artist known for doing the Hope and Change posters with Barack Obama in his first campaign, the one where he's red and he's blue and kind of cool. Shepard is a friend, and he is going to be sending me a whole bunch, well, at least a few, of numbered signed prints that would be of interest to people who are Democrats. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Sure, I'm going to have a fundraiser, and there are going to be some of the prizes you can bid on at that fundraiser, so we can raise some money. But I'm also going to have some of them for anybody who's given. So if you've given me $3 or $5, you're going to be entered into a drawing. If you've given me $100 and up, you're going to be entered into a drawing. And if you've given, say, $500 and up, you're going to be entered into a drawing. And each of them is going to have a chance to get a poster. Random drawing. Try and keep it democratic, trying to keep it fair, give everybody an opportunity. Because the people who have given me even $3 have made an effort, have said, yeah, I want to support somebody to kick Mike Turner out of office. And Mike Turner needs to go because he works for the base and not for you. So, if you're a fan of Shepard Fairey, I'd be donating right now, either through Act Blue or through Elect Esrati. Remember, if you donate over $100, you can have one of our snazzy t-shirts. And if you'd like to volunteer, you might get entered into a drawing as well. Need people to help find locations for signs, go out door to door. Although we still don't have a canvassing app, we might have to do it old school. But I really appreciate anybody willing to take time and help me in this mission to send Mike Turner back. And by the way, all his talk, he was on Face the Nation on Sunday. He's supporting Trump left and right. And if you haven't seen our latest spot with Average Joe, you'll probably enjoy it because it shows how uncomfortable Mike Turner is defending Turner. But he's coming up with the most far-fetched excuses on why Trump should have had top secret documents stored in a basement at Mar-a-Lago. He's got an awful lot of play, and every time he does that, I put comments in there on the comments on YouTube, and guess what happens? Mike's giving me money because people think he's so stupid and so out of touch with it, what's you do with classified documents, that they're seeing that him getting to the top of the House Intelligence Committee would not be good. So we need to make sure the House stays blue. We need money from you. We need help from you. And we need you to tell your friends about this and why you watch and get more people to come in and watch with us because we appreciate you. Remember, Mike Turner's never had a town hall in 20 years of being your congressman, and I'm doing it every day, and we'll continue this once I get elected to Congress. So until tomorrow, 4 o'clock, and we'll have another great topic. Hopefully you can stop in, or if you got any ideas, drop it in the comments. We see them all. I'll see you tomorrow. My name's David Esrati. I'm running for Congress. Thank you.